Blitz is the latest film from Steve McQueen. It's a historical war drama set in London, as you might have guessed, during the German Blitz of World War II.
Your son did not arrive at his destination.
You're responsible for his safety. Why can't you tell me? Where's my boy?
For whatever reason, it hasn't been getting a ton of attention, but it's probably still worth a watch. As mentioned, Blitz is set in wartime London during the German Blitz of the Second World War, but it is less focused on the war itself and instead uses it as a backdrop to explore pain and confusion in a number of different ways. Essentially, it follows Saoirse Ronan's character, who is a munitions worker in a factory, and she is put in a difficult situation, as many parents were at this time. She could choose to keep her son in London or to send him away to a more rural part of the country in order to keep him more safe from these inevitable German bombings. She makes the difficult decision to send him away, but of course, this young boy, George, hops off the train and attempts to make his way back to the city. The film itself was inspired by a photo that McQueen saw of a young black boy with an oversized suitcase at the train station. It is really a perfect representation of these children bearing so much weight for a war that they had nothing to do with. The film does explore this race element. The young boy is being raised by Saoirse Ronan, but unfortunately never met his father, and the film addresses what exactly happened there, so I won't spoil anything. Before I dive too deeply into the film itself, I think it's important to talk about Steve McQueen. McQueen is, of course, an artist through and through. Before becoming a filmmaker, he was an artist in other definitions of the word. He was a painter. He created art through mixed media, perhaps most notably, at least in the sense that it's tied directly to the inspiration for this film, would be his 2007 piece, Queen and Country, which came to him after going to Iraq, spending time with the troops, which was the same time that he became inspired for Blitz. But he came back to England, to London, and created this piece essentially honoring all of these fallen soldiers through a series of stamps that were displayed in a pretty amazing way. While in Iraq, McQueen has talked openly about this kind of sense of cognitive dissonance where on a fundamental level he opposed what was happening in this war, but at the same time, when in Iraq he witnessed a camaraderie, a sense of community that he never experienced within his own country. These were countrymen, but for one reason or another back in England, they lacked this unity that he was able to see while they were fighting. This idea of unity or lack of unity is certainly present in Blitz as well. As a filmmaker, he's known for pushing boundaries of the art form, and he's always concerned himself more with the art than with the quote-unquote movie industry, and that's generally shown. He's been making experimental films since the 90s, but he is most known, of course, for 12 Years a Slave back in 2013. More recently, he's created the Small Axe anthology, which has been widely regarded as one of the best anthology series in recent years, and that's available to watch on Prime Video, so I definitely check that out. Overall, though, Blitz, I would say, is a little bit more of a traditional film-making approach. There are certainly moments that are quintessentially McQueen, but for the most part, it follows a fairly standard narrative arc. There are moments that are truly beautiful, but then there are also some moments that maybe didn't work or resonate with me. There's some use of CGI, which just feels out of place in this more grounded period piece. But this was the largest budget film that he's ever had, and I don't know if he's a director that necessarily needs that sort of budget. As mentioned, the film is primarily focused on this mother-son relationship between Saoirse Ronan's character and her son George, but there's an introduction of so many supporting characters that all have a role. They kind of serve as metaphors or symbols for the best and the worst of humanity, but many of them are introduced briefly and then fade out, and it can leave the audience wanting a little bit more. In fact, during much of the second act into our third act, we almost forget about the mother at times because George is going on these different journeys and meeting different people along the way, which can potentially, I guess, limit the emotional impact of their journey. That being said, Blitz and McQueen's work is at its strongest when it is playing with both sound and light. There are some gorgeous, powerful moments of almost complete silence juxtaposed to the destruction of the city and the chaos around our characters. There's a scene in particular where we can hear the echo of every single footstep on the tracks, leading into this almost surrealist sequence. Similarly, when McQueen is playing with light, there are also some of the strongest moments in the project. There is a pretty frequent use of heavy, harsh backlighting of our characters, which leaves them very much covered in shadow, but with this almost rim light around them, which looks beautiful on screen, but also serves as a pretty apt metaphor for their struggle, for the bleakness, the darkness of the situation, with the glimmer of hope, and that hope normally coming from family and the ones they love. When it comes to the performances here, Saoirse Ronan's good. She's always good, but she's not given as much here as in some other roles. If you haven't seen The Outrun yet, for example, another 2024 film, I would definitely try to check that one out. She is in almost every single frame of the film, and so much weight physically and emotionally is placed upon her. Our young lead, Elliot Heffernan, is good. My bar for child actors is not super high. It's normally, okay, did they take away, did they detract from the film? And Elliot didn't. He was totally fine. Nothing stood out to me, but nothing stood out to me in either direction. It was not the most brilliant performance ever, but it was serviceable, and he created a space of empathy for the audience. But it is a film that is trying to do so much. McQueen, you can tell, is interested and is passionate in so many different issues that he doesn't quite have the opportunity to explore them each as deeply as perhaps he should have or could have in the confines of this particular situation. There's explorations of race, most notably with George's relationship with a supporting character called Ife. But again, this exploration feels somewhat limited. There's, of course, the central relationship, this mother-son dynamic, which disappears for large chunks of the film. There's also an exploration of the role that women played in World War II, the relationship between the rich and the poor, and the socioeconomic factors as well. But again, when you try to do so much in a film, it is often the case, as I feel it probably was here, that none of those themes are truly explored to the depths that they require. That being said, still definitely worth a watch. The final beats of this film are so beautiful. There are moments, as mentioned previously, that are just quintessentially McQueen, and he always, forever knows how to pack that emotional punch. It's on a limited theatrical run currently and is scheduled to come out on Apple TV November 22nd. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked it, then, well, like it, comment, subscribe, do all those things. Super helpful. Thank you so much. Watch the next one. Have a great day. Cheers.